We're getting used to family photos from the royals now being shared on social media. Yesterday, these two were posted for Prince William from his children, so they're wishing him well. Is that rather nice? Charlotte, Louis, George. Am I right? Yeah.
Yes.
And then because this then starts the competition, and we don't know whether there's a kind of call and response thing going on here. But late last night, UK time, Meghan shared a video on her Instagram of Prince Harry with his children Archie and Lilibet. Let's have a look. That's the most we've seen of Archie and Lilibet, interestingly.
I think that's a really cute, lovely video. And the sad thing is they'll probably get lots of abuse for it, because they always do. But I will say, I mean, I was not a fan of that video they put out the other week of in the
twerking?
The twerking one. That was not my cup of tea.
I don't know, I just thought that was a nice thing between a couple, but I think it'll be seen as being, because it is quite highly produced. They've got a weird old filter on that as well, that's the LCD, it makes it kind of do funny old lines.
Yeah, I mean, it feels quite churlish to object because, as you say, it's a very sweet video. I think what's frustrating about it is they complain all the time about intrusion into their private lives and wanting to protect their children and not feeling safe to come on to set foot on UK soil. And then they put out videos like this, which they know are going to be seen by millions of people and poured over, or of private moments like the twerking. I don't think you can have it both ways.
But maybe you can. Maybe we've misunderstood that, because the media always say you can't have it both ways. But maybe it's acceptable for them to say, we'll put out what we want to put out, but we don't want anything coming back the other way. We don't want any interest in us that's not about what we've chosen to put out. I mean, I know that sounds a bit contradictory, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can't do that.
I know what you mean, and I think, but they do complain a lot about, don't they, intrusion. But equally, you know, they're damned if they do, if they're damned if they don't. If they hadn't put anything out, everyone would be saying, well, what's going on? Why have they not put anything out, you know, on Father's Day?
What stands out immediately in this discussion is not actually the video itself, but the familiar pattern that follows anything connected to Harry and Meghan Sussex. The moment they share something as simple and human as a family video, the conversation almost automatically shifts away from warmth or context and into interrogation. It's as if the existence of joy in their private moments becomes a public debate rather than just a family moment. And that alone says more about the media environment around them than it does about the couple themselves. Let's be honest about what we're seeing here. On one side, you have Prince William's children sharing a traditional, controlled, palace-approved style of birthday message. It is neat, polished, predictable, and presented exactly the way royal communications have always been presented. No controversy, no over-analysis, just how lovely. And fair enough, it is a sweet gesture. But the interesting part is not that video. The interesting part is how quickly the conversation pivots the moment Meghan Sussex shares anything involving her family life with Prince Harry. Suddenly, the tone shifts. Suddenly, we are in courtroom mode. Suddenly, every frame becomes evidence in some imaginary trial about whether they are consistent enough, private enough, or public enough. And that's where the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Because when Harry and Meghan Sussex choose silence, the same voices ask why they are hiding. When they share something personal, those same voices accuse them of oversharing. It's a kind of narrative treadmill where the goalposts move every time they stand still. If they do nothing, they are accused of being absent. If they do something, they are accused of being performative. At some point, you have to step back and ask whether the issue is really their behaviour, or the fact that some people have decided they must always be in the wrong, regardless. The video itself, from what is described, is actually quite simple. A family moment, a gentle visual, a message of warmth and positivity layered over clips of Harry and the children. Nothing scandalous, nothing controversial. In fact, if you stripped away the names attached to it, most people would likely describe it as exactly what it appears to be: a modern family sharing a moment of affection. But because it is Meghan Sussex and Prince Harry, it gets filtered through a different lens entirely. Suddenly, there are debates about production quality, filters, intent, messaging strategy, and whether the public is allowed to see it at all. And let's talk about that word people love to use, allowed, as if Harry and Meghan Sussex require permission slips to exist as parents online. It's fascinating how quickly some commentary shifts from observation to ownership. There is a subtle but constant suggestion that they owe the public a perfectly balanced formula. Show us your life, but not too much. Be relatable, but not visible. Share your children, but don't share your children. Speak about privacy, but remain permanently available for scrutiny. It is an impossible equation designed to ensure one outcome: criticism. What makes this even more ironic is that the same media environment that questions their inconsistency is often the one generating it. Because the pressure is not neutral, it is reactive. If Harry and Meghan Sussex post nothing, the headlines become, "Where are they?" If they post something small, it becomes, "Why are they posting?" If they post something heartfelt, it becomes, "Why now?" There is always a question waiting, but never a satisfactory answer, because satisfaction was never the point. The point is perpetual commentary. And here's where the humour in all of this practically writes itself. Imagine living your life like that. You post a birthday message for your child, and somewhere in the background, a group of commentators are preparing a thesis titled "The Strategic Implications of Soft Lighting in Sussex Household Media Outputs." At some point, it becomes less journalism and more interpretive theatre. But beneath the humour, there is something genuinely revealing happening. The criticism often relies on the idea of contradiction. You can't say you want privacy and then share content. But that argument collapses the moment you apply it to the wider world. Millions of people curate their lives online. Millions of families share milestones, birthdays, celebrations, and memories. The difference is that most of those people are not under a global microscope where every post becomes a referendum on their character. Meghan Sussex and Harry exist in a space where ordinary behaviour is treated as extraordinary evidence. And what often gets ignored in all of this is the emotional reality behind it. These are not just public figures, they are parents. And parents sharing joy about their children is not a contradiction. It is humanity. The idea that they must either retreat completely from sharing or be prepared for endless criticism is not a reasonable standard. It is a setup. A no-win scenario dressed up as analysis. Even more interesting is how quickly some commentators lean into the phrase, "You can't have it both ways." That line gets repeated almost like a reflex. But what if the real question is not whether Harry and Meghan Sussex are trying to have it both ways, but whether the public discourse is willing to accept that modern public figures can define their own boundaries? Because that is really what is at stake, not inconsistency but autonomy. The irony is that the most consistent thing about Harry and Meghan Sussex in all of this is their actual position. They want to protect their children while still sharing selected moments of their life on their own terms. That is not contradictory. That is controlled visibility. It is a very modern approach to public life, and one that challenges older institutions that were built on full control or full exposure. And when something challenges an old system, the system tends to respond by questioning its legitimacy. There is also something worth noting about the emotional tone of the public reaction itself. If you remove the noise, what you often find is that the actual content, like this video, is soft, affectionate, and positive. But the reaction layer is where the friction exists. That friction is less about the video and more about the ongoing cultural conversation surrounding Harry and Meghan Sussex. It has become a kind of symbolic space where people project their broader opinions, frustrations, and loyalties. And that is why even simple family moments become amplified. Not because they are inherently controversial, but because they're interpreted through a pre-existing narrative. In that sense, the Sussexes are no longer just individuals in the story. They are a canvas onto which competing narratives are painted. And once that happens, even a harmless clip of a father with his children becomes a debate about authenticity, strategy, and intention. What is often missing in these discussions is the simplest interpretation, that it is possible for Harry and Meghan Sussex to share something because it matters to them personally, not because it is part of a grand media strategy. Not everything has to be decoded. Not everything is a statement. Sometimes a family video is just a family video. And yet, the conversation continues to circle back to the same tensions: privacy versus publicity, authenticity versus presentation, intention versus interpretation. These are not new debates, but they are intensified in this particular case because the attention on them is so relentless. It creates a feedback loop where everything is magnified, including the smallest gestures. At some point, it becomes clear that the real story is not the content being shared, but the environment reacting to it. And that environment is what shapes public perception far more than the actual material. Which brings us back to the core issue. Harry and Meghan Sussex are not simply navigating public life. They are navigating a permanently active commentary machine that assigns meaning before intention is even considered. And perhaps the most telling part of all of this is how predictable the cycle has become. Share something, critique follows, stay silent, critique follows, clarify, critique follows, do nothing, speculation fills the gap. It is a system designed to keep them under continuous analysis, regardless of what they do. So when you strip everything back, what remains is not a contradiction in their behaviour, but a consistency in the response to them. And that consistency is scrutiny. Ultimately, whether someone likes or dislikes Harry and Meghan Sussex, it is difficult to argue that they are operating in a neutral media environment. Even their most ordinary moments are filtered through layers of interpretation that most public figures never have to contend with. And that is why discussions like this often reveal more about the observers than the observed. As for the video itself, maybe the simplest reading is the most accurate. A family sharing a moment of affection, a father with his children, a message of goodwill, and a soft glimpse into their world. Everything else, the debate, the criticism, the analysis, comes after. And that is where I want to bring this to you, because I'm genuinely interested in how people see it. Do you think Harry and Meghan Sussex are fairly treated when they share moments like this? Or do you think the reaction has become predictable regardless of what they do? At what point does analysis become overreach? And do you think it is possible for public figures today to truly balance privacy and visibility without being criticised either way? I'd really like to hear your thoughts on this, so drop your comments below and let's talk about it properly. Don't forget to subscribe to Royal Sussex Report for more deep dives like this. And if you're enjoying the conversation, support the channel and stay part of the growing community. There is always more to unpack, and your voice is a big part of that discussion.